largest gathering of horseshoe hotshots ever held, all with their own unique style, their own unique stories, and a common love for the sweet sound of the clang. Oh, you're a wizard. You're a wizard. Let me show you something here. I'm going to show you how we do it back home in Cincinnati, okay?
Well, I'll be anxious to see how they do it in Cincinnati.
First, we hold it like this to get it really lined up well.
Be sure and watch the audience now.
How about that, huh?
Pretty close.
It was close. It was
nice
close.
shoe.
How you doing? Ken Brew with my pal Donnie Roberts here, and we're in Spearfish, South Dakota for the World Horseshoe Pitching Championships. And today we are going to see the cream of the crop in the sport.
We certainly are. We're going to see the top 4 men and the top 2 women who have competed through this tournament and made it to the finals, and it'll be a really good competition today.
We have had competitors from all over the country, some from outside the country, and I think, Donnie, that the practice time that goes into this really can't be overemphasized. It takes a lot of practice to get to here the World Championships.
It certainly does. All these people who are competing today have practiced for years and many hours each day, and there's a lot of hard work that's gone into what they're going to be doing here.
One of the first names that comes to mind when you talk about horseshoe pitching is Walter Ray Williams, who's not only an accomplished pitcher, he's also a pretty big star on the Pro Bowlers Tour.
He certainly is. Walter Ray became a horseshoe pitcher about 20 years ago and has been coming to the World Tournament ever since. And he's a very, very fine horseshoe pitcher and, as you say, a good bowler, too, and he should be a factor in this event today.
But I think we need to point out that when Walter Ray needs a tip, he comes to me. Now, you want to see another one here?
Yes, I'm quite sure he does.
This is what we do back home, Donnie. Watch this.
Well, not too bad, Ken. Not too bad.
The stakes are farther away back home.
Well, Cincinnati would be off just a little bit. That's no problem.
Brought to you by Budweiser, Beechwood Age for that distinctively clean, crisp taste that makes Budweiser the king of beers. For all you do, this Bud's for you. Well, here are the women who will be pitching for the finals. On your left is Phyllis Nygaard, young lady from St. Joseph, Minnesota, and her competitor is the defending champ from Dresden, Ontario, Sandy McLaughlin, who will pitch first. Sandy won it all last year. 2 years ago, I should say.
Yes, that's correct. Sandy won the toss to start the game, so therefore she's pitching first. Looks
Nicely done.
Yeah, it looks like her first shoe might not quite measure. It may have gone past a little bit, but the second one is definitely a ringer. And Phyllis's first shoe is a ringer also. One thing you might notice right off is that the women are pitching at the distance of 30 feet.
And 2.
Yes, she has 2 ringers.
Phyllis is a 4-time world champ. In fact, she was a 3-time world champ before Sandy ever started pitching.
She certainly was. Sandy is a relative newcomer to the top level class, and she's just been competing at this level for 3 or 4 years, whereas Phyllis has been at it for many, many years. On that first pitch there, Phyllis had 2 ringers, and Sandy just had 1, so the score is 3-0 in favor of Phyllis at this point.
Shot of Phyllis.
Looks like Phyllis has 2 ringers on this time.
One more pitch for Sandy McLaughlin.
Sandy's first shoe may be a little short. They'll have to check it. But
great story about Sandy is that she started when her brother challenged her to a game of horseshoes and bet her $1 she could not get 1 point.
Yes.
I asked Sandy what her brother was doing this weekend. Probably cheering for her.
No doubt. She said she lost a lot of money in that deal when it first started out.
We are measuring here. Now, what are they doing here, Don?
Well, that shoe is so close they're not quite sure it's on. And they have to take a straight edge and put across the 2 heel cocks of the shoe. And if the straight edge clears the stake, that means that they have a ringer.
Our judge today is Eddie Garcia, who has made his decision. And the match will move on.
They were all 4 ringers, so there's no score at that particular end. In horseshoe pitching, the scoring may be a little different than what people are used to, but we use what they call a cancellation system. whereby if I throw one ringer and you throw one ringer on top of it, they cancel each other out and there's no score. So at this level of competition, there's many times when they'll throw all 4 ringers on the peg and there's no score. So some of these games today could be very, very low scoring as a result of that system. Sandy has 2 ringers on there. Phyllis, of course, is trying to cancel them out.
Phyllis's second pitch coming up.
Again,
and nicely done.
Again, Phyllis has one there that the judge may have to look at because you can't tell for sure that it's definitely a ringer.
Phyllis said she started in this about 13 years ago as a backyard pickup player. She has branched out into other things like snow skiing and darts and fishing and boating, a real outdoor gal.
Yes, she is. Definitely an outdoor gal and definitely a top-notch horseshoe pitcher, as evidenced by one of her previous games that led her up to this point. She had 33 ringers out of 40 shoes for 82.5%, and defeating Lois Webster of Kentucky, who was the 4th place finisher in the women's this year.
2 more tosses for Sandy McLaughlin from Dresden, Ontario, up in Canada.
Sandy has won a lot of horseshoe tournaments in the last 2 or 3 years. Anytime she attends a tournament, she's the odds-on favorite to win. And she even competes in some of the open tournaments where they allow the men and the women to pitch together.
Phyllis Nygaard in some trouble with that second one.
Yeah, Phyllis actually missed both shoes, and Sandy has 2 ringers on, so Sandy will score 6 points on this particular pitch.
And of course, Donnie, the magic score that everyone is shooting for here is what?
Well, of course, the games that we're playing here today are just 40 shoe games and not going to a specific score. So at the end of 40 shoes, whoever has the most points will be the winner.
We'll be back with more here from Spearfish, South Dakota. The Horseshoe Championships will continue in just a moment. Weeks, the city has become a melting pot of state flags and individual pride. Horseshoe fanatics have saved vacation time and hard-earned dollars to compete at this largest ever horseshoe event. They're here renewing old friendships and competitive juices.
A lot of people still have an image of a horseshoe pitcher being in bib overalls out behind the barn, but that's really a misnomer. Here at the World Tournament, less than 5% of our entries are what you would call farmers. You know, some are ranchers, but we have a good cross-section of professional people, doctors, lawyers, mathematicians, teachers, nurses, physicists even.
There ain't no other sport in the world that your opponent would rather give you a point as take one if it was in doubt. They'll stand there and say, I believe you got the point. No, they call a judge. The judgment said this got it. They pick up the shoes, that's all there is to it. There ain't no killing the umpire or anything like that. It's just sportsman's sport.
They've been here for 2 weeks, almost 1,500 competitors pitching day and night in all kinds of weather, some of it uncooperative. But the one constant that you always hear is the clang. The clang. It's like music to the ears of these horseshoe violinists, whose only instrument is a 2-pound piece of steel and an arm which never tires of swaying to the crazy beat of this sport, their sport, one they play during the day and into the wee hours of darkness in the early morning. Often they pitch until midnight, and once they threw until 4 a.m. and then got out of bed a couple of hours later to pursue this game, which has crawled under their skin like a disease that happily has no cure.
I'd come home from my job and I'd be nervous and worried about the job. I'd pick up the shoes, go out for 20 minutes pitching, and all of a sudden I'd be smooth, go back in the house and I relax for the evening. That's how it started.
There's a challenge there to hit the stake and to make ringers. That's the big challenge to me.
You get to meet so many new people and you enjoy talking with them, and each one tells his sad story of why he lost his game or why he won it. And it's interesting.
This is almost too big, but nevertheless, I find myself stopping and talking with someone I've never seen before, and we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, they have a lot to talk about, but it's easy meeting strangers when you have a common love. And to have your name and hometown proudly stitched on the back of your shirt. That's the tradition at World Championships. Meet Trudell, a 4-time champ from Montana, and Larry Holmes from Rising City, Nebraska. There's John Brown from Lancaster, Ohio, and the tourney's youngest competitor, 7-year-old Thomas Hicks.
How good are you?
little bit good.
Getting better?
Mm-hmm.
At the other end of the spectrum is this year's oldest horseshoe heaver, 88-year-old Frank Hendelmeyer. He's been playing the game forever. Every day he practices by pitching some 300 horseshoes and pitching the virtues of his favorite sport to those who don't indulge.
You should get into it. It's a good game. It's a real sport. It's better in football. You don't get hurt in this. You get hurt in football. Competition, that's the only thing I come out here for. And I enjoy the people that's here. I come here to win, and I didn't, so I'm going to go home. Not a broken heart, but it's going to be still pumping, I hope.
An affectionate kiss from wife Mary surely keeps this man's heart pumping, but they're not the only lovers at this campsite. No, everyone here has a certain love for a game involving a stake in the ground, a horseshoe in hand, and a special sound that appeals to the little guys, big guys, and everyone else who heeds to the unique clang of horseshoes, a noise symbolizing a special bond between man, metal, and happiness.
Well, the score is now 21-15 after 34 shoes, so there's only 3 pitches left. If Phyllis could throw 6 ringers, she's going to win this game because no way Sandy could catch up. That one was, she hung on to that one just slightly, but was able to still hook it for a ringer. Now there's another case where she didn't do her follow-through and didn't reach out like she was supposed to. As a result, the shoe overturned and missed.
That could hurt because I think Sandy's at a point right now where she needs nothing but ringers.
That's correct. Anytime you see a shoe thrown that short in competition, you have to figure that the tightness of the situation is affecting her game a little bit. Now, to compensate for the short one, she overthrew that one, turned it past it, so Phyllis has picked up about 4 points here.
That could just about put it out of reach.
Yes, it could. A score of 25-15 at the end of 36 shoes. Phyllis just needs to throw a ringer or two, and there's no way that Sandy can get back in the game.
And she's got...
So you're looking at the new women's world champion standing right there now.
Everything old is new again.
Yes, it is.
This will be for the 5th time should it hold up, and it appears to be holding up for Phyllis Nygaard.
Well, it's really been a banner year for Phyllis because she was inducted into the Horseshoe Pitching Hall of Fame this year, and now she's got a world title to go with it, so I don't know what else she could do. I think you'll discover those are all 4 ringers. That one standing up looks unusual, but it's still around the peg. Yeah, it was 4 ringers. So the score is 25-15 with 2 shoes to go, and you can't score 10 points in 1 pitch. So
No, you can't, unless you play double or nothing, and that's not the case here at the World Championships.
Phyllis Nygaard is our new world champion. I think I can see that she's got a pleased expression on her face.
I would think so. And this, as they say in the business, is just for show.
Yeah. Icing on the cake or whatever. Actually, ringers on the steak would be better said, wouldn't it?
Beautifully
4
done.
ringers.
Phyllis Nygaard has won the World Championship here in Spearfish, South Dakota. A real ringer, if there ever was one. And it wasn't by by any thin line, it was by a bunch.
Well, that's her husband and coach. He sits around and watches her follow through in her pitch all the time, so he's greatly responsible for her victory as much as her own ability is.
We'll have more here from Spearfish, South Dakota in just a moment.
Thank you.
This has just been a magnificent year for you, not only winning today, but also going into the Hall of Fame. Sometimes you pinch yourself to see if it's all real.
It's incredible. I can't believe it. A thrill.
Let's talk about the match today, and Donnie and I were commenting that it seemed like you were just in complete control. It seemed like it to us, but you roll your eyes. You weren't?
Well, it started out fine. It seemed to me fine, but about the last 10 shoes, there wasn't much on me that wasn't shaking.
Is that right?
that kind of control. Donnie, you need that when you get to this level, don't you?
You certainly do. In the match that she played today, I could tell by the way her shoe was flying through the air that she was very, very well prepared and very confident. Her shoe looked really nice. As far as all the parts shaking, I guess that goes with the territory.
So you'll be back next year to defend, I hope.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Phyllis Nygaard, the world's women's horseshoe pitching championship, so crowned today here in Spearfish, South Dakota. Warming up for the first men's semifinal is Walter Ray Williams. He is the taller of the two on the left-hand side in the striped shirt, and his brother is who he will face in this first semifinal, Nathan Clay Williams. Before we get into this match, Donnie, let's talk about how this tournament was structured.
Well, back on June the 1st of this year, all the registrations had to be in. And in this particular men's division, they were seeded into their classes based on their pitching performance in sanctioned tournaments previous in the year. And these guys were in the top class semifinals and played last Sunday. There were 140 of them at the time. And those 140 people played their preliminary games, and the top 32 got into the championship class. And they've played 31 games over the past 4 or 5 days to earn their way into this position.
And now we're down to the final 4. We will have 2 semifinals that will produce 2 winners who will move on to pitch for the national championship.
Yes, it'll be very similar to the ladder format that you see on the Pro Bowling Tour. The number 3 and number 4 position players are out here now, and the winner of this game will play the person in position number 2. And then the winner of that game will play the tournament leader for the World Championship.
Scoring on this, Donnie, how is that determined? We talked about ringers, and ringers can cancel each other out. But as you pitch to 40, how are the points accumulated?
Well, a ringer counts 3 points in a horseshoe game, and any other shoe that's within 6 inches of the peg counts 1 point. The only thing that's unusual about our pitching is that we use the cancellation system, and if you throw a ringer and I throw a ringer, they cancel each other out. If you have 2 ringers and I got 2 ringers, they cancel each other out and there's no score. The only way you can accumulate points is to throw more ringers than I do. If I throw 1 ringer and then you throw 2, your 1 ringer cancels mine, but your other ringer is still alive and counts 3 points. In a situation where I might only have 1 ringer and you might only have 1 ringer, then we can resort to the close shoes. If I've got one within 3 inches of the peg and you've got one within 4, well, I would get 1 point for that one that's 3 inches from the peg.
If I threw more ringers than you, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I'd be out there competing.
Well, you didn't look too bad out there on the court this morning. I thought it looked real good.
Donnie, as we get ready here to start this semifinal match, I think we cannot talk enough about the turnout here. We've had some great crowds to watch the preliminary competition and a great crowd here today for the finals.
Yes, we have. We've had good crowds all week. Last week we had outstanding crowds, and it's evidence here today that we've got a big crowd for this match.
As we have brother against brother, Walter Ray Williams, probably one of the better-known pitchers in the country, Stockton, California, home for him, and his younger brother by 6 years, Nathan Clay from Tucson.
That's correct. It's always interesting when you have brothers competing in a competition at this level. It doesn't happen very often in our sport, but these 2 brothers are definitely in the finals. Might mention that in the preliminary games that they played earlier in the week, Nathan defeated Walter Ray. So I'm sure he's got that in his mind and would like to get even here this afternoon.
Walter Ray is off to a good start as he throws his first 2, and now here comes his brother Nathan.
Once again, you'll kind of want to take a look at Nathan's pitching style because he does throw a reverse turn, and not everybody does that. It turns in a counterclockwise direction.
And what a start we've got to this match.
Certainly did. We got 4 ringers the first pitch, so I guess they came out to play this afternoon.
Would not be surprised to see this in terms of points being a lower scoring match. We could see a lot of cancellations. Take a look at Nathan's form on his first pitch here.
Yeah, see, he holds it on the side there, and the shoe flies through the air in a counterclockwise direction. Also, later on, we can discuss a little bit about his follow-through. He has one of the more noticeable follow-throughs that you'll see in this tournament. After he lets loose of the shoe, his momentum carries him way on out on the court, and not too many people do that. Nathan has 2 more ringers on the stake there. Walter Ray Williams Jr. was a junior world champion about 3 times when he was very, very young, and that's when he started pitching horseshoes. And he reached a level of ability that almost no one had ever seen with the horseshoes at that time. He pitched so well that they nicknamed him Deadeye at that time. And we do have horseshoes that people pitch that are called Deadeyes after his nickname of many, many years ago.
This is his 20th consecutive World Championship.
Yes, it is. And back in the junior years when he played, he was averaging right at 90% ringers. And then he came into the men's division and performed just as well. He reached almost the 90% level in one of the men's tournaments. So he's a very, very fine pitcher.
We'll have more semifinal action here from Spearfish in just a moment as we pitch on towards a World's Championship. Walter Ray Williams pitching, and with what now is an insurmountable 25-point lead.
Yeah, Walter Ray is going to move on into the next game, and he'll be playing Jim Knisley, who is the defending world champion, and that should be an interesting match. Both top-notch pitchers and both pitching well.
Knisley had some success at this last year, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He became the world champion last year, and he's really a tough, top-notch pitcher. And it should be a very exciting match between he and Walter Ray. Well, that makes the score 31-9 with only 2 shoes to go. So Walter Ray has successfully defeated his brother Nathan, kind of getting even for the loss suffered earlier in the preliminary round.
Yes, I would think that Nathan would have liked to have saved that for now, but it just, as they say, was not in the shoes.
That's exactly right. Nathan threw 2 perfect ringers there. I guess he's wanted to show everybody he could finish strong anyhow, huh?
And Walter Ray will finish up here and move on closer to perhaps another World Championship. If the shoe fits, wear it. If it's on the stake, even better. Walter Ray Williams has disposed of his brother Nathan, and now will move on closer perhaps to another World Championship. I think it can't be overemphasized that this is a family sport deluxe, and so many of these pitchers began in the backyards with their moms and dads. Well, there is a family that is here this week at the World Championships that really puts the word family into horseshoe pitching.
Hey, the milk in it with bubblegum. Do mine.
It's breakfast time, and when the Hicks family gathers to eat, there are enough folks to form a horseshoe tournament. Well, not quite, but camping here are 10 horseshoe lovers from Virginia, Mom and Dad and the 8 kids.
My name's Carl Hicks, and I'm 10 years old.
My name is Eugene Hicks. I'm 17 years old.
I'm Sonia Hicks. I'm 17. I'll be 18 in a week.
They range in age from 6 to 23, and most of these kids will tell you that they've been pitching horseshoes back home in the town of Ruth Glen, Virginia, since they were knee-high to a stake in the ground. Almost every year they come to the World Tournament, bringing plenty of good food and even more laundry. Video games help pass the time of day.
They sleep a lot, play video games, color, play cards. So I do the driving, they do the playing.
I won the game.
At this year's tournament, no one had more entrants than the Hicks family. 7 of 8 children competed, as did Mom and Dad. During their 2-week stay in Spearfish, they pitched in a total of 131 games. And while no one finished on top, daughter Renee has before. She's considered the best pitcher in this, Horseshoe's biggest family.
Well, the first year I pitched, I was 13.5 to 14.5, and I only averaged like 16%. Second year, I jumped to 59%. And the reason was because I practiced in the morning, in the afternoon, and at night. Daddy always supplied everything we needed. He took us everywhere he needed. He supported us in every way. Never had to pay for anything. It was just something that we all loved, and we all did it as a family.
Back home in Virginia, the area this family plays and practices is known as Hicks Coliseum. But that's 2,000 miles from Spearfish, and when you're that far from home, little family squabbles occasionally flare up. Just ask 10-year-old Carl.
I was playing the game of horseshoes. You just hit me.
Your sister did? Well, that happens in a family, doesn't it, sometimes? You'll get even with her, won't you?
Yep.
Were you crying? You got some tears in those eyes, don't you?
Put a spider in her bed tonight.
You're in a what?
Put a spider in her bed.
Go ahead, Carl. Charlene. Kara.
After a month on the road, it's time to head home. Like the coach of a football team, Floyd Hicks counts his troops before sending them inside the camper for the long ride back. This year's tourney is almost over, and while they've pitched a lot of horseshoes here in Spearfish, they've done so as a family. 131 games and a lot of loving memories.
It's great. It really is, because you get to be a family. You get to do things together, and you know, you hear so many things about divorces and everything and stuff like that. And going out, you know, my parents, they love each other to death, and if they love us, and none of us are treated more than the other. We all get equal shares in everything. It's always been like that, so it's really great when we're together.
This NHPA World Tournament Highlights video, capturing all the thrills and excitement from the first ringer to the championship round. This two-week event brought together 1,500 entrants from all over the world, all vying for the title World Champion. Only $19.95 plus shipping and handling. Call 1-800-525-3690 or send check or money order to NHPA, P.O. Box 278, Monroe Falls, Ohio 44262. Sponsored in part by Williams Distributing and Budweiser. When you say Bud, you've said it all.
Fish, South Dakota for the World Horseshoe Pitching Championships. Ken Brew with Donnie Roberts. You know, Don, I think this is a lot like throwing a baseball. There's no real good way to do it. There's no right way to do it. Everybody has their own style, don't they?
They certainly do. As for every horseshoe pitcher we got a different style. Everyone's unique.
Different kind of grip?
Yes.
Doesn't matter. You just got to get it down there on that stake, don't you?
Well, that's the name of the game, but there's several ways to do it, and if you want, I could show you some of the grips that are used for that.
Absolutely.
Well, the most popular grip, the one that more people pitch than any other, is called the turn and a quarter. That means it turns 1 1/4 times when it goes through the air. You simply hold it on this side, and when you throw it, it just turns like this until it hits the peg.
Kind of spins.
Yes. Another very popular turn is held over here. They call that the 1 3/4. It simply turns a little more than the other one does.
Right.
And then another popular grip is in the same location for what they call a 3/4 turn. It just turns 3/4 of a turn, and then it's open and hits the peg.
Right.
Another one that's very popular is called the flip grip, where they hold it in the back and they flip the shoe end over end like this to make a ringer. So those are the 4 styles that most horseshoe pitchers use.
I guess the only thing that's important is to make sure that the shoe is off the horse before you throw it.
Well, it's rather difficult to throw one with the horse on it, although every time one rolls out through the audience, we say we forgot to take the horse off.
Well, Walter Ray Williams has moved on, but he has got himself a real tiger by the tail now. This is Jim Knisley from Bremen, Ohio. And Jim is the defending men's champion.
Yes, Jim is the Ohio State champion as well, has been for about 10 or 12 years, and he is the current world champion and one of the very best pitchers that there is in the world, has been over the last 20 years. Very, very fine pitcher.
And he will have the honor of going first here. You saw the toss to determine who would go first. Jim wins it. Pitch number 1. And what a way to start.
Yes, he throws the 1 1/4 turn that we talked about earlier. And he has one of the more classic pitching styles among all the competitors. He's got a very, very fine form.
Left the door open there for Walter Ray, who now steps to the line, having disposed of his brother, will take on the defending champ.
Yes, and he missed his first shoe considerably to the left. Could be a little first pitch jitters going on here. These two gentlemen, of course, average right at 80% ringers in the tournament here so far. Walter Ray Williams won 23 games and lost 8 in the preliminaries. And I might mention that he had 1,389 ringers out of 1,828 shoes. So that's a lot of ringers.
That is a lot of ringers.
You and I might have to pitch for a couple of months to do that, Ken.
Yeah, we'd be here till Christmas.
They certainly would. Jim Knisley, on the other hand, had 1,372 ringers out of 1,796 shoes. So between the two, they've thrown almost 3,000 ringers in this tournament already.
Here is Knisley again, first in the world twice, including last year in California, second in the world 4 times, and no better pitcher in Ohio than Jim Knisley. 12 years he has been the Ohio champion.
Yes, and he threw a perfect pair of ringers there. Jim picked up 1 point on the first pitch. They each had a ringer, but Jim had the closest shoe, so Jim got 1 point and is leading 1-0. Walter Ray has missed his first shoe here, and Jim's going to score again. Jim has 2 ringers on, and Jim has 2, and Walter Ray has 1. Now, when they call that to the scorekeeper, they'll say 3 ringers, 3 points.
3 ringers, 3, as you heard Jim Knisley said. So many champions have come from the state of Ohio, not in small part due to Jim Knisley, but Ohio right now, in terms of men champions, leads the list. They've done it 12 times in that state.
That's true. Ohio has been the #1 NHPA membership state for the last several years, and they do have a lot of good tournaments, and as a result develop some very high-quality pitchers. Jim threw that one too high and clipped the top of the peg. With his shoe, he throws a real high, soft shoe, and when he does miss, often it is by throwing over top of the peg.
Not that time.
No, that time it was right on.
That was the horseshoe of a different color, at least from the first one, as Walter Ray Williams steps to the line now and finding himself down 4-0.
Yeah, it's early in the game, and a 4-0 lead at this point is not a real problem. They've got plenty of time. I'm quite sure Walter Ray will score some points fairly soon.
Might here, as he has canceled the first ringer by Knisley and adds on to it himself.
Yeah, so this call will be 3 ringers, 3, and the 3 points will be for Walter Ray Williams. That'll make the score 4-3 after 6 shoes, so we have a very tight match developing here, Ken.
We'll be back for the men's semifinal here from Spearfish in just a moment.
South Dakota. I can almost hear the clang of those horseshoes hitting the stakes from back here in Washington. It's tempting to me to join you, but this government desk job is keeping me pretty busy. It's often said that the hours spent fishing should not be deducted from one's time here on Earth. Well, if you ask me, the same should be true about the time spent pitching horseshoes. Some of my best hours have been spent pitching horseshoes with my family and friends. It's a competitive, relaxing sport. But I'm just one of over 30 million Americans who've discovered the pleasure of pitching horseshoes, and you're the ones who have made it to the top. So here's a bit of advice from an amateur. May your worst shots be welded to the stake, and may your lives be full of ringers. Congratulations to you all, and best of luck.
I guess anymore, Donnie, this has become the national game with George Bush in the White House, the president, an accomplished horseshoe pitcher. You, I understand, have done some coaching for him.
Yes, I've been involved with President Bush for about 5 years. When he was vice president, he called my office looking for official horseshoes, and we arranged for him to get them, and then he'd been pitching ever since then, and he visited our tournament at the Ohio State Fair last summer. He and Dan Quayle stopped in and pitched for about a half an hour. And it was at that point that he indicated, should he be elected president, he was going to build a court at the White House. And he has, in fact, built a fine horseshoe court about 110 feet from the Oval Office there and pitches horseshoes all the time. We had the privilege of going up there on April 1st to christen that court, and a lot of these top players were there, as well as a lot of other people. I might mention that he also has a court at Camp David and one at his home in Maine.
So he's not fooling around, is he?
Not fooling around.
Well, he has got to be impressed with the pitching that we're seeing here today from Walter Ray Williams and Jim Knisley. It is about as good as you're going to get it in this sport, as Knisley leads as we move on. We are at the halfway point, and Knisley has built a 7-point lead.
Yes, it's 11-4, and the game is half over. They go to 40 shoes. And I don't think Walter Ray wants to let Jim get too much further ahead, or it could be a tough situation. And Jim seems to be pitching extremely well right now. His shoe is really looking good. He threw 2 more ringers there. So the defending world champion, Jim Knisley, is going to put the heat on Walter Ray, as you can tell. You think that one will measure, Ken?
Yeah, I think that'll make it. That'll make it. Here comes pitch number 2.
4 ringers.
And I don't think anybody's going to pick up points there.
No, 4 ringers.
Spearfish, South Dakota. About 5,700 people live here year-round. It is just a wonderful place. In fact, there's no spearfishing that goes on here. It's like a fish hatchery, vacation spot that has been inflated almost twice its size by the World Horseshoe Pitching Championships. It is universally recognized as one of the world's greatest monuments, Mount Rushmore, a tourist attraction carved into a mountainside, forever etching in stone the profiles of 4 great American presidents. About 60 miles away is a town sitting on the same hills of South Dakota, a place of breathtaking beauty, mountain streams and waterfalls, lush vegetation, and somewhere around 5,000 residents. Spearfish is a place where the main street is still called Main Street, where little shops quietly and quaintly beckon customers with promises of down-home cooking, and where this year nearly 5,000 tourists gathered for something called the World Horseshoe Pitching Championships.
a welcomed invasion.
The executive director of Spearfish's Chamber of Commerce, Lisa Modrick, happily jokes about the invasion of Spearfish, South Dakota. Almost overnight, the population here doubled as RVs, campers, and tents and horseshoe fanatics from throughout the country came rolling in, looking to pitch horseshoes and dollars into the local economy. Hey, and when you come here, you don't necessarily stay at the Holiday Inn. Right here is Motel Road. There are campers from as far as you can see, all housing the horseshoe pitchers. As a matter of fact, I want you to meet the best pitcher in Napa Valley, California. Say hi to my pal, Ray Martin. What do we got here for dinner, Ray?
Steaks.
Medium rare, okay?
Gotcha.
Okay.
Your own.
Hi there. Need some more coffee? Yes, please. And
Medium rare steaks on the grill or hot coffee from the kitchen. Pitching horseshoes does wonders for the appetite, and local business folks are more than happy to pitch in.
2 years ago, when we found out that we were awarded to have the World Horseshoe Tournament, we started out gathering a committee and put it together. And I got elected to be the chairman of the committee. And what we did during that time of 2 years, the community got behind us. We put on bingo games, we put on dances, we went out to talk to sponsors, we went to all the businesses around town and got money from them.
Those businessmen are smiling like you wouldn't believe. Even ones who didn't think they were going to get hit have been hit already.
There are 22 motels in Spearfish. Now that doesn't seem like a lot, but remember, there are 5,700 people in this town, 22, and it's tough to get a room here this week with the Horseshoe Pitching Championships, but you know, I'm with ESPN. I might have a little pull. Let's see here.
Cozy Motel. Oh, I'm sorry. We're all booked up this week. We have the World Horseshoe Tournament in town.
During the World Championship competition, no vacancy signs have been as common as flying horseshoes. They camp, they eat, they pitch, and they spend money. This year's Horseshoe Invasion will pump nearly $1.5 million into the local Spearfish economy. It's all happened before in small towns like Pleasanton, California, Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and Ainsworth, Nebraska. Next year, Stone Mountain, Georgia will be the site of this championship. But for now, it's Spearfish's turn to bask in the glory of horseshoe heaven. And what's at stake is much more than what you see here. It's enough to make South Dakota's most famous residents smile. And, say local residents, someday make another pitch for the thousands of horseshoe pitchers and millions of dollars they've brought to the beautiful Black Hills of South Dakota.
36 shoes have been pitched, 4 more to go.
Well, you know, Walter Ray is trailing by 8 points, 15-7, and he's going to have to pick up 8 points in 2 pitches, which means that Jim would have to miss here in order for Walter Ray to have a chance.
Could be over after this sequence.
If he throws 2 ringers right here, the game's over. There's one of them.
One down, and this to move on for a successful, what he hopes would be a successful defense of his world championship. There is still another level to go. Waiting in the wings is a young man named Francis, who, as we talked about, got a full dose of Mr. Knisley.
Yes, Alan Francis is the tournament leader. He's from Missouri. He's just 18 years old, and last night Jim Knisley and Alan played in the final game.
Look at this. They were just, Walter Ray extended his hand to say congratulations, although we still have more pitching to go. It is now a virtual lock for Jim Knisley to move on.
Yes, Jim threw 2 ringers there, and even if Walter Ray cancels those and throws 2 back, 13 points would be the highest score he could obtain. So Jim has defeated Walter Ray here.
Jim Knisley has defeated Walter Ray Williams, and Jim Knisley will now move on to meet Alan Francis, and the winner will be the world champion. We'll have more here from Spearfish, South Dakota. Don't go away when we continue to determine who goes first. And we're set. The winner of this match will be the world champion.
Yes, that's correct. This ought to be a very, very fine match, Ken. Jim Knisley, who is the defending champion, who just defeated Walter Ray Williams, is a seasoned veteran and quite capable of winning this game easily. On the other hand, Alan Francis, who's just 18 years old, has been playing in this championship group for 2 or 3 years, and he's been pitching really, really well all week. So it just looks like this has got to be a good match.
And a little tough luck for Jim Nisley right off the top as it sculled the top and went off.
Yes, it did. It's just a simple case of he may just have a little bit of jitters at the start of this last game. There's a lot at stake here.
Our first chance to see Alan Francis, 19 years old, Blythedale, Missouri.
Now, once again, you'll see a unique pitching style here. He turns his shoe in a counterclockwise direction, as just the same as Nathan Williams did earlier. However, Alan just pitches the three-quarter turn, but it is a counterclockwise turn that he has on the shoe.
Looks like Alan should pick up a point.
Yes, they have a ringer each, which cancels each other out, and Alan does have a shoe within 6 inches of the peg.
Let's watch Alan's form, and as we talk about, there really is no correct way to throw. It's whatever floats your boat, and apparently this works for Alan Francis.
Yes, it does. You'll notice his arm extending out there. He has a very fine reach on the shoe, and that's a very smooth style you're looking at there.
Says he's been in pitching for 10 years, which would have made him 9 when he began.
Yes.
From a home that sits about 100 miles north of Kansas City, Missouri.
Yes. Well, again, Alan has a ringer and a close shoe there, so he's only had one ringer each of the first 2 pitches. He's going to have to improve that performance, or Jim will most likely get away from him.
I would think a man with the experience of Jim Nisley, you just don't leave that door open all that much, or that would happen.
That's correct. Jim picked up 3 points there, and he'll now lead 3-1 after 4 shoes.
Jim Nisley.
He brings it up in front of his face, looks at the peg, has a straight back swing and a follow through. Nice soft shoe, and there's the result, a perfect ringer.
Little hop at the end, too.
Yes, it's true. Again, you can see he's just got a very smooth style, nice soft shoe, and just lands on the stake with no effort at all, it seems. But he's starting out in this match just like he did in the match with Walter Ray. It looks like Jim has come to play today, Ken.
It sure has. 2 ringers here on the round of 6 as Alan Francis steps to the line.
That's a perfect ringer. Alan's going to have to get on his game quick, or Jim's going to get away from him early.
Nisley leads 3-1. It will stay that way as we have 4 dead in the round of 6.
In the game that was just played between Jim Nisley and Walter Ray Williams, Jim Nisley had 32 ringers out of 40 shoes for an even 80%. Walter Ray, in a losing effort, had 31 ringers out of 40 shoes for 77.5. So those are the stats on the game you just saw.
Nicely done. Alan Francis is a 9-time Missouri state champ, 6 years as a junior, the last 3 as the men's state champ. He will not have 2 dead on that, and will leave the door open for Jim Nisley, who leads 3 points to 1 here as we pitch in round 6.
Yes, he got that one up in the air a little too high, and it just clipped off the top of the peg. Now Jim has also missed one, so Jim could only pick up 1 point here if he can throw a ringer.
And he does.
Which he did. So that's a ringer each that cancel each other out, and Jim Nisley gets 1 point for that close shoe.
We'll crown the new men's champion here in Spearfish, South Dakota after this.
Championships from Spearfish, South Dakota are brought to you by Budweiser. Beechwood Age for that distinctively clean, crisp taste that makes Budweiser the king of beers. For all you do, this Bud's for you.
Still a mathematical possibility.
Yes, it is.
For Jim Nisley, it is 18-10. Alan Francis leads by 8, 4 pitches to go.
Well, Jim throwed the 2 ringers.
So the heat now is on Alan Francis for the cancellation.
All Alan has to do here is to kill the 2 ringers, or cancel the 2 ringers out, and the game's his.
Uh-oh.
That was a perfect ringer that bounced off. He threw that shoe as well as he possibly could, but it just spun off. Oh, that was a little shaky, but it's on there.
It's on there, but it looks like Jim Nisley will pick up 3 points.
He will. He's going to be behind 18-13 with 2 shoes to go, and if he were to throw 2 ringers and Alan missed both shoes, Jim could win the game by 1 point.
It's like having a couple of men on in the bottom of the 9th and down by 1.
Yes. The only problem is Alan does get his turn at bat. If Jim was the only one out there, it would work out fine. With the score 18-13, if Jim were to throw a double and Alan would miss both shoes, then Jim could win by 1 point.
Well, we'll know after this first shoe if he's still in the ball game. This must be a ringer. You got it.
Is. He's got one of them. He has to throw 2 ringers to have any chance at all.
When you're a champ, you do not go quietly into any good night or good day or wherever you happen to be.
That's true. Well,
now, he has set the table. Alan Francis must deliver.
Alan has got to throw 1 ringer. If he does, he's the world champion. If he misses both of them, Jim is the world champion.
That's it.
Alan Francis is the world champion.
It came down to the next to the last shoe. But Alan Francis is the world champion.
Well, Jim got 3 points there. It makes the final score 18-16. But as you say, Alan Francis has upset Jim Knisely and is the new world horseshoe pitching champion.
They're old enough to be father and son.
Yes, they are.
And the younger of the two has come through. Alan Francis is the new world horseshoe pitching champion. 6-time state champ, 3 as a junior. Please say hi now to the reigning men's world champion, Alan Francis. Congratulations, Alan.
Thank you very much. This is I don't know, I'm almost speechless. This is such a great thing to happen.
Pitching against a guy like Jim Knisely, who seems to make every shot count, and in essence was in the finals of this right up until the last pitch, you had really little room for mistake, at least when you got here to the finals.
Yeah, he's a great pitcher and has been for a long time. It's just a privilege to play him this championship game and to luckily come out a winner.
Donnie Roberts, you've seen him come and go in this sport. This guy's a real comer, isn't he?
Yes, Alan Francis was an exceptional pitcher as a junior, and as you saw out there today, he's doing the same thing as an adult. He really looks strong today.
At a guy who, at an age you're at, which is, you know, not even 20 years old yet, you have to think that the future is so bright for you to win a national championship this young in life. One would think you'd be back here 20, 25 years from now trying to do the same thing.
Well, hopefully I'll be back here, and I will be trying to do the same thing. I don't know. Never can tell. I might lose it and I might not. I hope I don't, though.
Well, the form and the style worked well for you today. We're tickled pink for you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
The World Championship is going home to Missouri. Well, Donnie Roberts, we had fun. We saw some great pitching, didn't we?
We certainly did. We had a fine championship here today, a lot of good competition, and that final match really was the icing on the cake for the whole tournament.
And the weather and the people in Spearfish could not have been better. The World Horseshoe Pitching Championships from Spearfish, South Dakota has been a presentation of Bud Sports, aired through the facilities of ESPN. So long, everybody.
Rod and Pam Shipper.
You guys see him?
I saw him once. Right now I see him.
He's pretty tough.
Down the side of the camera. Get it. We want somebody to feed. I got the squad.
Thought he was going back on the other side.
You see that turtle out there?
They're on the waterfall.
Look at the turtle in the water there.
Quack, 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 quack.
Yeah.
Honk at me, buddy. Honk at me. Honk at me, buddy. Honk at me.
Coming right down toward you, Stan. Then you get up there on that. That's kind of like seeing the blur. He's here dark. Been trying to run from him. That old lazy raccoon. Little goats. Little deer. There's a little deer down there.
Where?
Down in there.
Oh, I'll have to get that.
Mama cow, so mighty small, but mama cow.
We leave it here, let's pick them up.
Well, Toby, I wonder why. Because I probably let go.